This is another round of with just 15 defeats. In fact, it's the second round of the January the 16th night of heavyweight boxing around the world. I'm Teekosey, and thanks for watching. Please check out my channel where you'll find a lot of content on heavyweight boxing, my predictions and breakdowns. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and leave me some comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So as I say, we move on to the second round of the January the 16th night, and this was a fight for the WBC strap between Deontay and Artur Szpilka. Very interesting matchup, very interesting fight. Now, if you've watched my mini prediction bet video, you'll know that I predicted that Deontay would win this by knockout. I think a lot of people thought this to be the case. However, there was a minority that thought Szpilka could overcome the odds and dethrone Wilder, particularly considering Wilder has not had the most varied opponents, the most difficult challenges. But for me personally, I looked at Szpilka, looked at the fights he'd had up to date, and he'd actually struggled. I personally felt in a number of fights he'd lost before. He'd actually struggled against other smaller heavyweights, and to be honest, I just thought Deontay would probably be able to win this fairly comfortably. But anyway, the match was actually fairly interesting. So as this fight went a considerable distance, we're going to go for the full breakdown, the full with just 15 defeats breakdown treatment. So round one, Szpilka, he started showing a lot of movement, a lot of head movement, and also a lot of body movement. He was getting down deep, and he showed what he was going to be doing for the majority of this matchup, which was throwing wild, swinging deep punches, haymakers, and shots from distance. But the problem is that he was telegraphing these shots. He was telegraphing them, and Deontay Wilder was just able to stay out of distance, stay far enough to avoid most of these shots, and just throw out the odd jab just enough. And to be honest, for my money, Deontay Wilder just takes that round by probably landing the cleaner shots. So we move into the second round, where Wilder, he started to establish the centre of the ring, and he was stalking his opponent. Szpilka landed a few, and the crowd got excited at each punch, but there just wasn't enough output, enough landed by Szpilka to take that round. So again, Wilder, he takes that round. Third round, pretty much the same, but Szpilka, he was making it easy for Wilder. He was staying out of range. He had the movement, and he was staying low. But as I said in the first round, he was just swinging wild punches, and there wasn't enough of them. He landed a few towards the round, but nowhere near enough to take a round. So after 3 rounds, Wilder has 3 in the bag. Fourth round, very quiet round. We had a little bit of showboating from both towards the middle of the round, but everything seemed to be Wilder, the few punches that were landed, and then Wilder landed a good right hand with 30 seconds to go, and really, he should have gone in for the kill. He thought about it, but then he didn't do it. He didn't go in for the kill, but we'll give that to Wilder again. 4 rounds in the pocket for Wilder. So we go into the fifth, and this was an interesting round, because personally I felt that Wilder, he started it with confidence, obviously from the previous round, and I thought that he was probably going to end the fight in this round. He was dominating, he was throwing his jab out, but then he just dropped off. He dropped off, and it turned out to be Szpilka's best round of the fight. It was his most offensive round, and I know there were probably some judges out there that would have given that to Szpilka. So just for fun, we'll give that to Szpilka. So we move on to the sixth, and it changed again. Deontay Wilder controlled the distance and he landed some good shots early on, but it was fairly uneventful, and we'll give that to Deontay Wilder. So we go into the 7th, and Wilder landed a very good shot early on, which resulted in Szpilka grabbing hold of Wilder for the first time. But then shortly after this, Wilder completely stepped off the gas, and he allowed Szpilka to really control that round, and it was Szpilka's best round by far of the fight, and he landed a few despite none of them really being that damaging. So Szpilka gets his second round for me. We move into the 8th, and this round actually went exactly how I believe Szpilka envisaged this fight before it began, where he was going to be walking down Deontay Wilder and landing shots, and this actually was, when looking back, the best round for Szpilka. It was his most dominant round of the fight, and possibly the most dominant round for either fighter. So we give a third round to Szpilka, and that is 3 to 5 rounds, where we go into 9. Not much to say here, apart from the fact that it was a devastating knockout by Wilder. He drew in Szpilka halfway through the round, and then he detonated a massive right hand close in, and Szpilka just dropped, and he was out. He was completely out cold, and he was out cold for quite some time, and it was quite a worrying sight, to be honest, when you see this and they're quite motionless. He was completely out cold, and it showed you that if you have devastating power, you can end a fight in a heartbeat. And when it doesn't even quite look like it's going that way. Now, as I said in the last couple of rounds, Szpilka, he started to get a bit of momentum, and I think had he not been sparked out completely, if he'd evaded that shot and the fight had continued in the momentum it was going in, I think probably Szpilka would have had control, and he would have probably won. He would have continued to win rounds, because I think Wilder was slowing down. But he landed that shot, and that's what heavyweight boxing is all about. So we move on. What can Wilder do now? He's still the champion. He's still a belt holder. For me, it was another match where I wasn't particularly impressed by Wilder. He detonated a massive, fantastic highlight reel knockout. Beautiful punch. But he was fairly inactive. He struggled with the body movement and head movement of Szpilka, and it was, to be honest, I think when Wilder looks back at this, I think it's probably a very great learning fight for him. He learned a lot. It was a great workout, because what Szpilka was doing, the movement, it was a struggle for him, but as I say, he won more than half of the rounds, and he got the knockout, so job done for him. Where does he go from here? Let's talk about Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury, he's going for this rematch with Vladimir Klitschko, and that's going to time up for the best part of the year. So Wilder's definitely not going to be fighting Tyson Fury in his next match. And to be honest, I think Fury would probably comfortably beat Wilder. He would comfortably beat Wilder. Now, I actually think that a good fight would be Anthony Joshua versus Wilder, and I think Anthony Joshua could actually beat Wilder, to be perfectly honest, but I actually don't want Joshua to fight him. I think it's too early. I think he needs more learning fights before we get the big matchup. And Wilder needs to go in with a proven world level guy. Who that is, I don't know. I think David Haye might be an interesting opponent, but then David Haye doesn't deserve it either. He does not deserve it. He definitely doesn't deserve it. So we need to see who he's going to be fighting next before we discuss that further. But one thing I have always thought about Deontay Wilder is that he's very one-dimensional. He's very one-dimensional. He's almost like a school bully, where he knows he can get his own way when he's bigger and stronger. But when he comes up against someone cunning and skillful, he would struggle. And to be perfectly honest, that's why I think David Haye would knock out Deontay Wilder fairly comfortably if he's in his prime. But you need to check out the mini breakdown we did of the David Haye fight from the same night. And thanks for watching with just 15 defeats. If you've liked the video, please leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next round.